Namaskar and welcome back to the third and last episode of Filing Time. In the last part, we had a lot of our issues pertaining to the actual process of filing sorted. We have with us today again a senior expert from the Directorate of Systems, Sri Ramesh Krishnamurthy, IRS, to guide us through the final and often a neglected part of the return filing process. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
So once a return is submitted and a taxpayer is concerned that probably the return is not being processed, or if a taxpayer is worried that if there is any deficiency in the return that he had filed, what is the way out of this?
Thank you, Subhash. I'll just take one step backward in continuation of our last discussion. When we so if you're filing the return online, then the submit button is there. You submit the return and then you verify the return. If you've prepared the return offline, then you can come to the portal and then you can just submit the what is called a JSON file online. Or there is a feature from the offline utility itself, you can log into the portal. There is a functionality for login and then you can submit the return. Now, if you look at it from a validation perspective, most of the validations are inbuilt into the return itself. So, you would have seen in many cases taxpayers may have observed that if they have left something incomplete at the time of completion of the return, there will be some error messages that will come. It will say that you have left out this part or some part is incomplete. The feature that we have given is that if you click on that, it will take you to the place where the mistake has happened. It is something which is left incomplete. Clicking on that error message itself will take you there. So once you have completed, you can go back to the verification and complete the process. Now, if supposing you have missed all this and then you try to upload your return, then it will throw up an error. You will have to complete all the errors, then only the return gets successfully submitted. Right. The question that you are asking is that if supposing after this during processing you find out that you have missed out something and you expected a refund and you didn't get a refund and there was something else that came in, then you have two things. One is that you can check whether you made a mistake in the return. And more often than not, what we have seen is that there are data entry errors that have been made. You can correct it and then you can submit a revised return if you have time available. Time available for filing a revised return is till March 31st, 2022, or you can submit a rectification claim. So there are two ways of rectifying a mistake.
Okay. So once a taxpayer files a return, he is expected to verify it. So I think now a taxpayer can choose to verify a return either digitally or manually. So can you explain to us the different ways in which a taxpayer can actually verify his return?
So the point, Subhash, to note is that verification is a very important step in the return filing process. The return is still incomplete without the verification. So what we have seen is that nearly 88% of our taxpayers they complete the verification along with the filing process itself. So as you may be aware, or as taxpayers may be aware, that when you are ready to submit the return, it will ask a question whether you want to e-verify now or whether you want to verify later or whether you want to submit an ITRV. And ITRV is a verification form which you can print out and send physically to CPC Bangalore, which is with signature, which is a physical mode of verification. But what we have seen is that a large majority of our taxpayers have opted for e-verification. So today we have close to 81% of our taxpayers are verifying electronically immediately as soon as they are filing. And the most common way of e-verifying is using Aadhaar OTP. So what you do is you select e-verify now, select the option using Aadhaar OTP. You will get an OTP on your mobile which is linked to Aadhaar. You will enter the OTP on the e-filing portal and your verification is complete. So you don't need to submit any physical ITRV to CPC in Bangalore for processing to happen. The most important thing is that if you e-verify, then the return is immediately picked up for processing, and then the processing gets completed. So you would have received, or you would have seen in social media some kind of report saying that I filed my return and got my refund in 2 hours, or I got my refund in 3 hours. So this is possible only if you e-verify. If you send your ITRV by post, then it will reach Bangalore later, and then only after it is verified in Bangalore, then only the return will be taken up for processing. So physical submission of ITRV takes a longer time.
Right.
E-verification is the best option. There are multiple modes of e-verification. We have up to now more than 2.4 crore taxpayers have already e-verified using Aadhaar OTP, which is the easiest and the most flexible way of verification.
Sir, so for verification, I mean, now we've been talking about individuals. Now, in the case of non-individual entities, who has to verify the return of that entity?
So just Subhash, just to clarify, e-verification also there are multiple modes of e-verification. As I told you, the most common way is e-verification through Aadhaar OTP. The next most frequently used mode is called e-verification through bank account validation. We talked about bank account validation
Yes.
in our first episode, where we are saying that if the PAN is linked to the bank account and if the mobile or the email ID which is maintained in your internet account, if it matches with that of the e-filing profile, then we can also allow you to e-verify using the mobile which is linked to your bank account.
Yes.
That is called e-verification through bank account. Similarly, if you are having a demat account and the mobile or the email in the demat account matches that of your e-filing profile, you can even e-verify using that mobile or email ID. The last mode is the mode through net banking. So just as I said in the last time, you can reset your password.
Right.
You can also e-verify using net banking. So these are some of the modes of e-verification apart from Aadhaar OTP. But the point to note is that there is a maximum time limit that has been given of 120 days for verification. So whether you e-verify or you send your ITRV by post, please make sure that you do it within 120 days. Most often what we have seen is that the taxpayers do it immediately, but few people forget, and then they keep on thinking that why is my return not processed, my friend got his return refund and all that, I have not got my return, but they forget that they have not even verified the return. So the message is to the taxpayers is that you need to e-verify to complete the process of return filing.
Right. Sir, I think the digital signature certificate, I think that's one mode of verification. So, under what circumstances is verification through DSC done usually?
So Subhash, continuing with the other question that you asked earlier, this is on the question of who, for example, for non-individuals, who can verify. So for example, in the case of an HUF, the Karta has to verify. In the case of a company, the principal contact person who is the authorized signatory under section 140 of the income tax has to verify. Now, for non-individuals, the option for verification are through DSC or through ITRV, and other options are available. But it is mandatory for DSC to be used for companies, political parties, and for all entities who are subject to tax audit. So, whether it is an individual or an HUF or a firm or a trust, if they are subject to tax audit or audit, then they have to use digital signature certificate mandatorily to be able to verify their return. In the case of a company and political party, it is mandatory.
So in those cases where DSC is mandatory or even otherwise, if there were entities whose DSC was registered in the older portal, would it be necessary for them to register it again in the newer portal as well, in the new one as well?
Yes. So Subhash, this is a very important point that all our taxpayers should know, that the DSC that was registered in the old portal has to be re-registered. The reason is that the process has changed. In the old portal, the DSC had to be registered for every entity who had to file using DSC. In the case of the new portal, only the authorized signatory, in his individual PAN, the DSC has to be registered. Once it is done, automatically, if he is a director in a company, he is a partner in a firm, in his own individual capacity, in all those cases, automatically the DSC gets enabled and he can go and sign those returns as well. So the company return in which he is a authorized signatory, he can submit that return without any re-registration. So it is like register once and file for everyone.
Okay.
So that is the principle. That is why he has to re-register in the new portal.
Okay. So again, following up from that question, now let's say that the principal officer or the authorized representative of that particular entity is not, perhaps say, for not being an Indian, doesn't have a PAN. In that case, how would he verify his DSC or register his DSC in the new portal?
So that's a very good question. One of the mandatory requirements for DSC registration is that the DSC must have the PAN number of the individual mentioned in the certificate itself. So we verify whether the DSC is issued in the name of the same PAN as the authorized signatory. So what happens is that when any individual is trying to register the DSC, we'll compare whether the DSC also has the PAN number, which is the login PAN. If those two match, then only the DSC is linked to this person. Now, in the case of a non-resident or a foreign director or a foreign citizen, obviously he may not have a PAN number. He may be a resident outside the country. Now, in those cases, what we have given as a flexibility is that in the login of such a company in which there is a foreign director or an LLP or a firm where the authorized signatory is a non-resident, doesn't have the PAN number, he can use the DSC which is issued in the foreign jurisdiction, where his email ID, that email ID is mentioned in the DSC, must match the email ID that he is mentioning as the authorized signatory. So there is no PAN verification that is required, in which case the email ID will work. But as I said, this is only in case he is a non-resident director or a partner of a company or a firm.
Right.
In all other cases, PAN, if the director or the authorized signatory is an Indian, he has a PAN number, then the PAN number must be seeded in the digital signature certificate.
Right. So now moving to slightly more complex issues. Now earlier there were a lot of statutory reports or statutory forms that had to be filled in by the chartered accountant or the representative of the SSC. However, in the new portal, all of them, those forms are not visible straight away. Except Form 15CB. So, what is the workflow that a person has to follow to obtain these statutory forms?
So there is a two-step process. So in the new portal, what we have done is that we have tried to simplify that only those forms are visible which are actually relevant to the taxpayer. Now in the new process, the taxpayer has to go to the portal and he has to first appoint a chartered accountant. So he goes to the menu item called authorized partners. In that there is an option called add my CA, and he can click on that and he has to add a chartered accountant. So this is the first step. Once he has added a chartered accountant, and the chartered accountant in his login will now see that so and so taxpayer has appointed me a taxpayer as a chartered accountant, and he must accept. Once he accepts, then the linkage between the taxpayer and the chartered accountant is established.
Right.
Now what can happen is that the taxpayer can assign whichever form he wants to the taxpayer. For example, it's a tax audit report under 3CA CD or 3CB CD, or say other statutory forms which a chartered accountant has to sign. So those forms are now assigned by the taxpayer to that particular chartered accountant. So this is the process. So right. Then that form will start getting visible to the chartered accountant for him to fill up and submit.
Okay. So we have also received some queries and clarifications that when the taxpayers tried to validate their returns using the offline utility, they were successful. But then when they tried to upload this online, that attempts failed. So what is the way out in such circumstance?
So so if you see in the instruction itself, in every income tax return, the PDF that was notified by CBDT, the instructions, it carries a whole lot of validations that we have proposed to be done as a part of the filing process. I'll give you a simple example. As you said, that supposing the loss from house property interest has to be restricted to 2 lakhs. So this is a validation that has been put. So this validation has been implemented in our income tax department software. So if you follow our income tax department software, automatically it will restrict that. Now supposing you are using a third-party software, it is a privately purchased software which is outside. We don't know whether the same logic or the same thing has been done or not. So this validation check has been imposed at the time of filing of the return. So there are some validations that will be done as a part of the return preparation process and as a part of the return submission process. If you use a departmental software, because we have ensured that there is 100% compliance to the validation rules, typically you will not find any problem when you are uploading the return, because all the validation rules are already satisfied.
Right.
But if the third party software that you are using has skipped or omitted certain validations, when we run those validations, those errors are thrown up. So that those errors will have to be rectified by you in the software that you are using, and then you can upload the software, upload the return, sorry.
Right. So, interest under 234A, that is one question that is very frequently pops up in the clarifications that we receive from taxpayers. So, so some taxpayers have asked us as to why is interest under 234A being charged even when the due date is now extended to 31st December 2021. So, could you clarify on that?
So, just to clarify, the extension of due date from July 31st to December 31st, in this process, if your total tax that was payable by you exceeded 1 lakh, you have not paid, for example, you have calculated your net of TDS and other advance tax that you have paid, if the tax payable comes to more than 1 lakh, then for the purpose of computation of 234A, 234A is computed for delay in filing of a return. The due date will be reckoned as 31st July only, and interest will be computed on the tax payable. But this is only if your tax payable is more than 1 lakh after giving all your, I mean netting out all the TDS and all that.
Right.
So the expectation was that you would have already paid your self-assessment tax before July 31st.
Right.
If you have paid your self-assessment tax before July 31st, so supposing you had a tax liability of 2 lakh, if you had paid it before July 31st, then there will be no tax liability. But if you had missed and now you are having to pay the 2 lakh self-assessment tax, then interest will be computed.
So, sir, we usually see that some taxpayers are receiving the refunds very quickly and some of them are waiting still to get their refunds. Could you throw some light on what is actually happening behind the scenes in this respect?
So, Subhash, through this program, I would like to respond by saying that if a return is properly filled and if all the prerequisites are met, then taxpayers are receiving their return refund super quick. I'll give you the basic, I would say, checklist that a taxpayer has to ensure. Number one is that he should immediately verify. So, all those taxpayers who are receiving refunds early are verifying using Aadhaar OTP. So, the process of filing is complete. That is number one. Number two, their bank account is validated. That means that through either online process or through an offline process, the bank account selected for refund credit is already seeded with their PAN number. So, what happens is that then we can immediately, there is no question of any refund failure. It's an active account. It is not any of the account which are logged or frozen or things like that. It's an active account, and where it is validated and PAN number is available with the bank. If the KYC is done and PAN number is available and the bank account number is validated, direct credit is possible. This is the second. Third is that he must not have any outstanding tax demand. So, if there is any demand pending, then we have to issue a notice under 245 to him, and then he has to respond, or then we will adjust, or we will have to adjust the refund against the demand. So, if he doesn't have any outstanding tax demand, then the refund gets credited immediately. The fourth reason is that he must report all the income that is there, which is shown properly, accurately, and he must claim all his taxes properly. Why I am saying that is that if there is any discrepancy, then the law provides for prima facie adjustment notices to be issued. So, if there are any discrepancies like this, deductions which are claimed and then they are not matching, or the income is not matching, sometimes we issue notices for either a defective return or a prima facie adjustment. Few refunds are also subject to additional verification or examination. So, for example, you have claimed a very high refund, but your which is completely in your employer has deducted, say, full taxes and TDS. Now you are showing deductions much over and above that, or some situations like this where we feel that the refund is slightly risky, then we may withhold those refunds for a small time till we examine those refunds. But that is why I said, if your filing process is accurate and you have taken care of the prerequisites of verification, bank account validation, and then there is no outstanding demand, you should receive the refunds quickly. This is, I am talking for ITR 1, 2 and 4. For processing for ITR 3 and other ITRs are still, we are doing the testing and we will be enabling it shortly.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that answer. So, is there something that you wish to convey to the taxpayers who are watching us from all across the country?
So, Subhash, I would just like to request all the taxpayers, nearly as on today, we have received more than 3.25 crore income tax returns. All the ITRs are getting filed smoothly. Every day we are receiving now more than 4.5 lakh returns. And in the past, we have seen a tendency for taxpayers to keep procrastinating, postponing the decision to file till the last minute. Our request and our humble request to all the taxpayers is that don't wait to the last minute. Please file your income tax returns now. Not only do you get rid of the stress and anxiety in the last minute, you'll be trying to make sure that your return is accurate. You may miss out some deductions that you should have claimed. You may make mistakes, and then the anxiety that whether whether you'll be able to do it in time. Please note that after 31st December there is a late fee of 5,000 that will be charged. So I mean, why do you want to have all that anxiety? Our request is that you file now. And as I have told, we are processing returns on a very fast basis. So if there is any refund due, you will also get your refunds back quickly. So my request through this episode, Subhash, is that all taxpayers should, whoever is yet to file, should file immediately, not wait till the last minute.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for guiding the taxpayers through the various issues that they might find while filing and post filing as well, and I'm sure this has been very helpful for them in going through the tax filing season. So as we get closer to December 31st, I'm sure this episode of Filing Time will assist you in seamless filing of your income tax returns on our e-filing website www.incometax.gov.in. Please do remember, every taxpayer is a nation builder. Do file your return within the due date and take part in the journey of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Until the next session from Samvad, thank you and Jai Hind.